Have you ever tried to let go of something, someone, a memory, a dream, and found yourself even more tangled in it? If so, you're not alone. The harder we try to release emotional attachments, the more they seem to grip us. Whether it's a past relationship, a painful regret, or the fear of an uncertain future, emotional weight can silently drain our peace, purpose, and joy. This video is for anyone who feels stuck. For those tired of carrying invisible burdens that cloud their mind, weigh down their heart, and keep them from fully living. We're not here to tell you to just move on or suppress your feelings. Instead, we'll walk you through a powerful and practical journey of real detachment, the kind that brings clarity, emotional freedom, and deep inner peace. You'll discover why most people misunderstand detachment and how that misunderstanding keeps them trapped. You'll learn techniques that go beyond cliches, including symbolic rituals, sensory grounding, mirror dialogue, and mindful release. If you've been searching for peace that doesn't depend on other people or external circumstances, then this video will be your turning point. Stay with us until the end. You might just reclaim the freedom you thought you lost. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to hold on to expectations or to cling to people not out of love, but out of fear? Fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. When we grip tightly to something or someone because we're afraid of what life might look like without it, we're not protecting ourselves. We're surrendering our power. We give away our peace, our clarity, and the beautiful possibility of freedom, all in exchange for an illusion of control that was never truly ours to begin with. Let's be clear, detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't make you cold, distant, or disconnected. I believe it's one of the most compassionate and liberating acts you can do, not just for others, but for yourself. Detachment is the bold decision to stop living at the mercy of things you cannot change. It's saying, I will love, but I will not lose myself trying to hold together what no longer fits. You free yourself from the exhausting illusion that trying to control the uncontrollable will somehow bring you happiness. Ironically, detachment deepens our relationships. When you stop clinging out of fear of abandonment, failure, or not being good enough, you create sacred space. You allow others to show up as they truly are, without burdening them with unrealistic expectations. You give people room to breathe, and in that freedom, an authentic connection is born. They're no longer trapped by your silent demands, and you're no longer shackled by the anxiety of needing them to fulfill something they were never meant to. And that freedom, it doesn't stop with others. It extends inward. You no longer need to strive endlessly to prove your worth or be perfect all the time. You start to accept that you're human, and that being human means sometimes things fall apart. Sometimes people leave, and sometimes dreams change. But none of that diminishes your value. None of it makes you less whole. When you embrace detachment, you're reclaiming your life force. You're no longer wasting your energy on what you can't control. Instead, you redirect it into self-compassion, into healing, into building something new and meaningful. Letting go doesn't mean you gave up. It means you chose yourself. It's not a surrender to weakness. It's a declaration of inner strength. It's the moment you stop bleeding for things that were never meant to keep wounding you. I know many people get detachment completely wrong. Society teaches us that letting go is the opposite of strength. We're told to fight, to push, to persist at all costs. But sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away with grace. Sometimes, releasing your grip is what allows something better to come into your life. That's why so many people, almost everyone, at some point fail to detach healthily. They think it means cutting off emotions or pretending they're fine when they're falling apart inside. But detachment isn't denial, it's radical acceptance. It's recognizing what you feel, understanding where it comes from, and then choosing to not let that feeling control your future. Another trap I see all the time is people rushing to move on. They want to skip the pain, rush through the heartbreak, and suppress the memories. But that never works. You can't outrun grief. The more you push it down, the more it clings to you. True detachment isn't forgetting, it's integrating. It's allowing the experience to be part of your story without it owning every page. We also live in a culture that idolizes stoicism. We're taught that strength means showing no emotion, and that vulnerability is weakness. But I believe real detachment takes immense courage. It takes the kind of bravery that says, I will face this, I will feel it, and I will still choose peace. Let me give you an example. Think about someone who says they're over a failed relationship. They block the person, throw out their pictures, and never mention them again. On the outside, it looks like they've let go. But on the inside, they're still replaying the hurt, still avoiding places and conversations that remind them. That's not detachment. That's suppression. True detachment says, yes, it hurt. Yes, I still feel it sometimes, but I'm not letting it dictate who I become. Many people fear detachment will make them less loving, less passionate, or numb to the beauty of life. But in my experience, it does the exact opposite. When you stop controlling and start allowing, your love becomes pure. Your connections become real. Your actions are no longer laced with hidden fears or desperate motives. You become more present, more alive. Detachment strips away the noise of anxiety and clears the fog of expectation. You begin to act from a place of authenticity, not fear. You give because you want to, not because you need something in return. You love with open hands, not clenched fists. Still, one of the biggest mistakes people make is treating detachment like a finish line. They think one day they'll wake up and be completely unaffected, perfectly balanced, and never triggered again. But that's not how it works. Detachment isn't a destination, it's a daily practice. It's a conscious decision to return to balance every time life knocks you off center. And trust me, life will. In this chapter, we're going to dive deep into the misconceptions that keep people stuck. We're going to dismantle the lies you've been told that letting go is weak, that love requires suffering, that pain is proof of devotion. Because real detachment isn't about avoiding life, it's about showing up for it. Fully, openly, freely. Letting go is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of your real one. Why is letting go so hard? It's a question that haunts so many of us, especially in the quiet moments when the memories rush in, when we second guess our worth, or when we cling to something that's already gone. The truth is, letting go isn't just hard, it can feel impossible. And that's because it's not just about willpower or logic. The difficulty lies deep in our psychology, embedded in how our minds are wired to survive. Emotional attachment isn't simply a bad habit we can snap out of. It's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. From the moment we're born, we learn that connection means safety, that the presence of a caregiver, a familiar voice, or even predictable routines means we'll be okay. As we grow, those early experiences shape how we view relationships, love, and even ourselves. At its core, attachment is a strategy for protection. It tells us, if I stay close, I'll be safe. But as we get older, this wiring can go haywire. We begin to confuse attachment with identity. We believe we are the relationship, the job, the dream, the version of ourselves we once needed to be. And so, when it's time to let go, when that relationship turns toxic, or the dream no longer fits, we feel as though we're tearing away a part of ourselves. Think about it. How many people stay in harmful relationships? Not because there's joy, but because there's familiarity? Because the pain feels safer than the unknown? I've seen it. I've lived it. The fear of being alone, of losing that sense of security, even if it's an illusion, can feel more terrifying than the actual hurt we endure by staying. Attachment theory helps us understand this. If your childhood was filled with inconsistent love, where you never knew if someone was going to stay or leave, you may carry that anxious attachment into adulthood. You might find yourself clinging tightly to people or outcomes, terrified of abandonment. Or, if you were taught that emotions weren't safe to express, you might lean into avoidant attachment, keeping people at arm's length, convincing yourself that distance is strength, but really, it's fear. It's fear dressed up as self-protection. Both patterns, whether anxious or avoidant, create a prison. And here's the painful irony. We lock ourselves in with the very keys meant to set us free. These learned behaviors become emotional shackles, making genuine detachment feel like emotional death. And let's not forget the chemistry of it all. The brain plays tricks on us. When we experience love, validation, or even the thrill of success, our brains release dopamine, the feel-good chemical. We're rewarded with pleasure, so we seek more of it. Over time, we get hooked, not just on people or situations, but on the feeling they give us. Even when that feeling is wrapped in pain, the brain still craves what's familiar. Because in our biology, familiar equals safe, even when it's far from healthy. Now layer that with cultural conditioning. Society tells us to never give up, to fight for what we love, and to stay loyal no matter what. We're taught that holding on equals strength, and letting go. That's a weakness. That's failure. That's betrayal. These messages don't just influence our thinking, they bury themselves deep in our subconscious, making the very idea of detachment feel like abandoning everything we've worked for. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And then there's the scariest part of all, the unknown. Letting go often means stepping into a fog where we don't know who we are without that attachment. It triggers primal instincts to run back, to cling harder, to avoid change at all costs. We'd rather stay in discomfort than face uncertainty. It's a cruel paradox. We're suffering, but we stay because fear whispers, what if it's worse out there? But here's the truth no one tells you. Freedom begins with awareness. We can't let go of what we don't first recognize. We have to start by asking ourselves hard questions. What am I truly afraid of? What belief is keeping me here? What would happen if I stopped holding on? I love the image of a rope tangled in knots. Each knot represents a fear, a memory, a story we've been telling ourselves for years. I won't find love again. I can't survive without them. If I walk away, I'll be alone forever. But the moment we begin to untangle even one of those knots, we create space. Space for truth. Space for healing. Space for peace. Detachment isn't about walking away from everything or abandoning your emotions. It's about finding balance, living with an open heart and a clear mind. It's about understanding that you can care deeply and still let go, that you can grieve and still grow, that you can release something or someone without losing your soul. When we stop trying to control what's beyond our grasp, we open the door to something more beautiful, authentic connection, real love, true peace, and most importantly, a deeper connection with ourselves. So, think of yourself like a tree in autumn. The tree doesn't panic when its leaves fall. It doesn't cling to them or scream at the wind. It simply lets go, knowing that this shedding is part of growth. Renewal begins with release. In that same way, when you choose detachment not out of bitterness, but out of love for your well-being, you permit yourself to bloom again, to shed what no longer serves you, to trust that new leaves will grow and that life isn't over, it's just changing. Letting go is hard, yes, but it's also sacred. And once you do, you'll look back and wonder why you held on for so long. Letting go isn't about rejecting life. It's about finally embracing it with both hands, with your whole heart. It's about saying yes to your peace, your growth, your healing. When we begin to understand the roots of our attachments, not just the surface behaviors, but the emotional scars and unmet needs, that lie beneath them, we unlock something profound: self-compassion. And that compassion is what allows us to gently untangle the patterns that keep us stuck and step into a lighter, freer, more empowered version of who we truly are. But let's be honest, letting go is not a simple decision. It's not a switch you flip or a mantra you repeat once and magically feel free. No, letting go is a deeply emotional process. It's raw, it's layered. It often feels like grief, like tearing away a part of yourself, even when you know it's hurting you. And what makes it even harder are the walls we've built around our pain walls, made of fear, guilt, and insecurity. These aren't small feelings. They are towering, persistent, and loud. And they have one job: to keep us safe. The problem is that they often end up keeping us stuck, instead trapped in patterns that suffocate our joy and sabotage our growth. Even when a part of us knows we need to move forward, these emotions step in and slam the door shut. Fear is one of the most powerful of these barriers. It's the voice that asks, "But what if everything falls apart if I let go?" It's rooted in uncertainty, and our primal instincts hate uncertainty. So instead of moving forward into possibility, we stay rooted in the familiar, even when it's painful. That's why people stay in unfulfilling jobs, toxic relationships, and unhealthy routines. It's not because they don't want better. It's because fear tells them that the devil they know is safer than the unknown. Fear isn't always screaming either. Sometimes it's a whisper, hesitation, avoidance, quiet self-doubt, or that inner voice that says, "Now's not the right time." And little by little, it convinces you that it's better to stay put, better to suffer, than to risk the unknown. And when fear doesn't stop you, guilt often will. Guilt whispers that letting go is selfish, that you're abandoning someone, failing your responsibilities, or letting others down. This guilt is often planted by cultural expectations, family obligations, or years of conditioning that taught you to put everyone else first, even at the cost of your well-being. You may feel guilty about ending a relationship that's draining your spirit because you don't want to hurt the other person. You may feel guilty about quitting a career that's slowly killing your passion because others depend on you. But here's the truth: no one talks about enough. Holding on out of guilt will eventually drain you completely. And when you're empty, you can't truly help anyone, not even yourself. Then there's insecurity, the quiet destroyer of inner peace. It doesn't shout. It seeps in slowly, weaving stories in your mind that without this person, this role, this job, you are nothing. Insecurity convinces you that letting go will leave you incomplete, unworthy, or lost. And the more your identity is tied to that attachment, the harder it is to imagine a version of you without it. I've seen people define their entire self-worth through their work, their relationships, their achievements. And when those things begin to fade or change, they panic. They grasp harder, afraid of what will remain. But let me tell you from experience, your worth is not tied to what you do, who you're with, or what you've achieved. You are worthy, period. And letting go doesn't take anything from you, it simply peels back what isn't you. Here's what I want you to remember. These emotional barriers, fear, guilt, insecurity, aren't signs of weakness. They are signs of humanity. You're not broken for feeling them. You're not failing because you're struggling. These emotions are ancient defense systems trying to protect you. But protection becomes imprisonment when it keeps you from evolving. The first powerful step to breaking free is recognition. Realize that these emotions are not permanent truths. They are temporary states, feelings, not facts. Fear does not always equal danger. Guilt does not always mean you've done something wrong. Insecurity does not mean you're not enough. So, how do we begin to loosen their grip? Start with compassion. Instead of judging yourself for being afraid or feeling guilty, ask, what is this emotion trying to protect me from? Often, fear is guarding your need for safety. Guilt is signaling your care for others. Insecurity is asking for love, validation, and reassurance. When you listen without judgment, you can meet these emotions with understanding instead of shame, and that shifts everything. Then, apply practical tools. One of my favorite methods is visualization, seeing yourself step into the unknown, not with fear, but with hope, not with chaos, but with calm. Envision yourself letting go and finding something better waiting on the other side. Journaling is powerful too, especially for guilt. Write down your thoughts. Ask yourself, is this guilt rooted in truth, or just a sense of obligation I've carried for too long? Daily affirmations help chip away at insecurity, gently reminding your mind that your value is not conditional, and that freedom is your birthright. When you use these tools, even in the smallest ways, you begin to soften those internal walls. Every step, every breath, every decision to choose peace over panic creates space for clarity, for peace, and for a future not defined by the past. Because the truth is, letting go isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. It's not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a sacred ritual of choosing yourself again and again. And when you do, you'll discover that life doesn't shrink when you let go. It expands. The pain loses its edge. The memories become lighter, and you begin to breathe again. One of the most effective and beautiful approaches to softening the grip of attachment is sensory grounding. In a world where our minds are constantly hijacked by past regrets or future anxieties, sensory grounding brings us home to this moment, to our breath, to our body, to the now. This practice gently interrupts the emotional spiral by inviting your senses to lead the way, guiding you out of the fog of rumination and into the safety of presence. When you're overwhelmed, maybe replaying a conversation that left you broken or swimming in the ache of an unresolved relationship, try something simple, yet powerful. Engage your senses completely. Cook a meal that fills the kitchen with rich spices and warmth. Feel the texture of the food. Smell it. Taste it slowly. Or take off your shoes and walk barefoot on the earth. Let the grass grow around you. Let the wind remind you that life is still moving. The goal isn't to run from your feelings, it's to return to life itself, to reconnect with the physical world that your pain tried to pull you away from. You're not escaping. You're remembering. Another profound and healing tool is symbolic release rituals. Why? Because we as humans are deeply symbolic creatures. We find meaning in the smallest acts. And when we ritualize our letting go, when we give it form, a gesture, a ceremony, we send a clear message to our soul. It's safe to release. You don't have to carry this anymore. Write down what you're ready to let go of: a name, a memory, a disappointment, or an emotion. Then burn it safely, shred it, or tear it into pieces. Feel what that act represents. The ashes aren't just paper, they're old chapters, now closed. You might bury a letter, donate a painful memento, or transform a once precious item into something new. These physical acts create a sacred mirror for emotional transformation. You are choosing movement. You are choosing freedom. And when your mind is spinning, caught in the endless loop of what-ifs, old arguments, or dreams that never happened, what you need is a pattern interruption. Attachment feeds on repetition. It loves to drag you back into the same painful scenes, hoping that maybe, just maybe, you'll change the ending. But you won't. Not in your head. What you can change is the pattern. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. So break the loop. Dance like no one's watching. Turn up your favorite song and move your body like it remembers joy. Take a freezing cold shower and feel your breath come alive. Drive a different way home. Walk a new path. Do something unexpected, something that startles you back into presence. This sudden shift jolts the nervous system, resets the emotional storm, and gives your heart the space to breathe again. If your attachments are rooted in relationships, try one of the most intimate and transformational techniques, energetic cord cutting. This isn't about severing love, it's about releasing the toxic entanglements that are draining your spirit. Close your eyes and visualize cords of energy connecting you to that person or situation. See each cord clearly where it's attached, how it feels. Then, one by one, imagine yourself gently cutting them, using a light-filled tool like golden scissors, a beam of light, or even your empowered breath. As you cut, breathe deeply. Feel the release, not with anger, but with grace. You are not rejecting love. You are reclaiming your energy. You are choosing to keep what's sacred and release what's heavy. You are allowed to do both. Another rarely spoken, yet deeply healing practice is mirror dialogue. It may sound strange at first, but it is powerful beyond words. Stand in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes, not with judgment, but with honesty. Speak to the attachment as if it were a person standing before you. Tell it everything: the anger, the heartbreak, the gratitude, the confusion. Let it pour out, raw and unfiltered. Externalizing your emotions this way is not about theatrics. It's about truth. You are permitting yourself to be heard, even if only by your reflection. And in that reflection, you begin to feel the strength of your voice. You begin to witness your healing in motion. Another helpful technique is time reframing. Sometimes attachments feel enormous because we're so close to them. We're staring at the pain through a magnifying glass. So zoom out. Visualize yourself 5, 10, or even 20 years from now, looking back at this moment. Ask yourself, will this still have the same grip on me then? Often, just that perspective shift deflates the intensity, like air slowly released from a balloon. Suddenly, you realize the thing that felt like it would define you forever is rest a chapter, not the whole story. And in that realization, you gain the wisdom to carry it differently. Now, let's be real. None of these techniques are magic spells. They won't erase your feelings overnight. But that's not the point. These are sacred tools, not quick fixes. Think of them like instruments in a toolbox there when you need them, adaptable to whatever moment you're in. Detachment is not about erasing memories, becoming emotionless, or pretending nothing ever happened. It's about creating space for new perspectives, for peace, for self-trust, and for growth. When you begin to integrate mindfulness into your life, you're building a bridge between your emotions and your capacity to let go. Because here's the truth: attachments can't survive in the present moment. They feed on your fear of the future or your obsession with the past. But in the now, they dissolve. Mindfulness invites you to return to your breath, to your body, to this exact second. It asks you to observe your thoughts, not drown in them. And one of the first steps is simply to watch without judgment. When a painful thought arises, an old memory, a fresh regret, label it gently. This is grief. This is fear. This is an attachment. That small act of naming separates you from the storm. You are not the emotion. You are the awareness of the emotion. That space changes everything. Because the moment you become the witness, you reclaim your power. Instead of trying to suppress the thoughts that haunt you, those regrets, those what-ifs, those stories you keep replaying, acknowledge them with gentleness, not judgment. Let them rise. Don't fight them. Just name them for what they are. If regret surfaces, pause and say to yourself, "This is regret." That small act of recognition holds immense power. Labeling your thoughts creates emotional distance. It's as if you're gently stepping back from the storm and watching it pass from the safety of the shelter. You're no longer caught inside the chaos, you become the observer. And when you can see your emotions from that neutral ground, their grip on you begins to loosen. Slowly, subtly, but surely. Mindfulness invites us to take it a step further, not just to observe our thoughts, but to tune into our bodies, because attachments don't just live in the mind. They live in the shoulders we tense, the chest we tighten, the breath we shorten without even realizing it. Your body tells the story, your mind is too busy to notice. So breathe. Breathe. Take slow, deep, deliberate breaths. Feel the air travel through your nose, down into your belly. Hold it for a second, and then exhale not just air, but stress. Let that breath carry away the heaviness. Let it be a symbol of release. Every exhale is a step away from what weighs you down and a step closer to what sets you free. But mindfulness doesn't only live on a meditation mat. It lives in the quiet, overlooked rituals of daily life. Washing your hands, chopping vegetables, walking to the mailbox. Each of these can become a sacred moment of presence, if you allow it. Feel the soap slide over your skin. Listen to the rhythmic sound of your footsteps. Pay attention to the color of the sky, the smell of coffee, the warmth of the water. These small sensory anchors pull you out of the past and into right now, where peace is always quietly waiting. And when your attachments are tied to unresolved relationships or deep emotional wounds, mindfulness offers a gift more precious than gold: emotional clarity. It invites you to sit, not to fix, not to judge, not to analyze, but to simply be with your feelings. This is reflective silence, a sacred pause, a quiet moment where you stop running and allow your soul to speak. Sit with your emotions as if they were old friends visiting with stories to tell. Let sadness come. Let fear rise. Let joy peek in. You don't have to do anything, just witness. When you allow your emotions to pass through you, without reacting, without clutching, you break the cycle of emotional reactivity that so often fuels attachment. And when it comes time to interact with others, especially those who trigger your attachment wounds, mindful communication can change everything. How often are we truly present when we talk? Most of us are already thinking of our reply, worried about how we're perceived, or waiting to defend ourselves. But mindful conversation is different. It's not about control. It's about connection. Be present. Listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Don't rush to speak. Don't plan your response. Just be there, fully. Respond with intention, not impulse. This kind of awareness transforms how we relate to others. It softens conflict. It quiets the noise of expectation. And most importantly, it calms the inner anxiety that attachment breeds. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Now, let's be clear, mindfulness isn't about being perfect. It's not about achieving some magical Zen state where nothing ever affects you. That's not real life. What is real and achievable is creating small, intentional moments of awareness throughout your day. One deep breath, one mindful sip of tea. One choice is to pause before reacting. These are not small things. These are sacred acts of liberation. Because every time you return to the present, you weaken the grip of the past. You say, "I choose this moment," and in doing so, you take your power back. The journey of letting go is not just a psychological process, it's a deeply human one. It's not a straight line. It's a spiral with moments of clarity and moments of chaos. And yet, through it all, we grow, we learn, we come home to ourselves. This journey is filled with heartbreak, yes, but also with discovery, renewal, and hope. It connects us all, because every soul has known what it's like to carry pain, to fear change, to long for healing, and every soul is capable of release. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means holding the memory with tenderness, without letting it dictate your next step. It's about loving what was, learning from it, and then turning your face toward the light of what could be. And when change knocks at your door, whether it arrives as a whisper or a storm, It brings both uncertainty and opportunity. Change asks you to step into the unknown, to trust what you can't yet see, and to surrender the comfort of the familiar. And yes, this is scary, but it's also where transformation begins. Letting go of attachment means facing the fear of losing control. It means dismantling the illusion that we can predict, prevent, or perfect every outcome. But what you'll find over time is that you don't need control to feel safe. You need trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust that what's meant for you will never require you to shrink, suffer, or stay stuck. And trust is not built in one brave moment. It's built slowly, gently, through repeated acts of release. Small choices that show you, I can survive without this. I can still be whole. I can move forward and bring my heart with me. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to? And what might it feel like to let go even a little? You don't need all the answers today. You only need space for reflection, space for truth, space to breathe. Because in that space, you will rediscover yourself. And you'll realize that letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of becoming who you were, always meant to be whole, grounded, free. Attachments often become so intertwined with our identity that we begin to mistake them for who we are. We wear our relationships, careers, and accomplishments like armor, believing they define us. But what happens when those things shift, end, or no longer serve us? Do we disappear too? Letting go of these attachments doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finally rediscovering who you truly are underneath all the roles, responsibilities, and labels. The caretaker, the achiever, the spouse, the provider, the loyal one. These identities may have carried you for years, even decades, but they are not the full truth of you. Ask yourself, who am I without the titles I've held, the expectations I've tried to meet, or the stories I've clung to? This question can be unsettling at first. It might even feel like stepping into emptiness. But it's in that emptiness, in that sacred space of not knowing where your real self has room to speak again. This journey isn't clean or linear. It's messy. There will be progress, and then setbacks. Days when you feel incredibly light and free, and others when the old weight returns like an uninvited guest. That's okay. That's normal. Healing and release don't move in straight lines, they move in spirals. What matters most is that you keep walking, one brave step at a time, trusting that with each breath, each small act of letting go, you're coming home to yourself. Detachment is not an act of erasing who you were. It's the art of integrating all you've been. It's allowing your memories, your heartbreaks, your joys, and your lessons to exist without letting them control your every move. You are not bound to the past, and you are not owned by your pain. You can honor what happened and still choose peace. You don't have to forget the past and pretend it meant nothing. On the contrary, detachment invites you to carry your history with reverence, but lightly. Not as a burden that breaks your back, but as wisdom that strengthens your spine. The courage to let go doesn't come from being unaffected. It comes from being deeply human. It's the kind of courage that feels your pain fully, but it chooses to respond with compassion, not control. It's meeting your fear and saying, I trust myself more than I fear change. That's not we-ness. That's the strength of the highest kind. And here's the miracle. Once you start living from this space, even your deepest heartbreaks begin to transform. They don't disappear, but they shift. They soften. They become teachers instead of tormentors. Your story no longer ends in pain. It evolves into resilience, wisdom, and clarity you never thought possible. So how do we begin weaving detachment into our everyday lives, not just during emotional crises, but as a way of living? It starts with intention and consistency. Detachment isn't a one-time event. It's not something you do after a breakup, a job loss, or a life transition. It's a mindset, a gentle but firm way of navigating life with grace. Begin by creating sacred space for reflection. Even just 5 minutes a day. Sit quietly, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, what am I still holding on to today? You'll be surprised what comes up: old arguments, unrealistic expectations, invisible pressures. Over time, this small practice rewires your awareness, helping you catch the emotional weight before it becomes too heavy to carry. Another powerful habit is deliberate release. At the end of each day, pause and reflect. What hurt you today? What disappointed you? What didn't go as planned? Then gently, consciously let it go. You might write it down and tear up the page. You might whisper, I release this. Whatever form it takes, make it real. Make it meaningful. Writing becomes a ritual. Reflection becomes liberation. And don't forget your body. Our minds may hold the stories, but our bodies store the stress. Physical practices like yoga, mindful walking, stretching, or even dancing alone in your room are not trivial, they're transformational. They help move stagnant, emotional energy, reconnecting your physical and emotional self. You begin to feel what's been stuck, and in feeling it, you start to free it. But perhaps the most subtle and profound shift comes when you reframe your relationship with control. So many of us live in a state of silent tension, trying to hold everything together: relationships, jobs, appearances, outcomes. We grip so tightly to life, believing we can force it to bend to our will. But the truth is, control is an illusion, and chasing it only leads to exhaustion. Start noticing the places where you're trying to force things, whether it's a conversation, a relationship, a project, or a future that just isn't unfolding the way you imagined. Ask yourself gently, am I forcing this? Or am I allowing? You'll begin to see how much of your stress comes, not from life itself, but from the expectation that it should go your way. And the moment you release that grip, the moment you surrender the need to control what you never, could you create space for life to surprise you, to bring you peace in places you never expected, to show you the beauty in what you thought was broken. Letting go is not abandonment. It's alignment. It's the practice of returning to your truth, day after day, breath after breath, and saying, I choose peace. I choose presence. I choose to trust what's unfolding, even when I don't understand it yet. And that, my friend, is the quiet power of detachment. Ask yourself, am I truly in control here? And answer honestly. Because more often than not, you'll realize that what you thought you were holding together was never really yours to control in the first place. Control is seductive. It makes us feel safe, but it's an illusion, one that can quietly rob us of peace, creativity, and joy. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. There comes a moment in your life, not always loud, not always dramatic, when the noise of striving fades, and you finally hear it, the soft, aching whisper of your soul saying, it's time to let go. Not because you've failed, not because you're weak, but because something within you, something ancient, sacred, and wise, knows that the constant gripping, fixing, managing, and controlling is slowly wearing you down. I've felt it in my own life. After sleepless nights spent rehearsing conversations, replaying regrets, and trying to predict every outcome like a human chessboard, I reached a point where I couldn't keep going like that. I was exhausted. My spirit felt heavy, and in that still, tear-soaked silence, I didn't fall apart the way I feared I would. I fell into trust. Not the kind of trust the world preaches. Not naive or reckless hope, but a deeper, holier kind of trust, the kind you grow into when life has humbled you. Trust in the unseen, in the quiet choreography of things that don't make sense right away, a trust that even in the messy unraveling of your carefully laid plans, something better, something more aligned with who you're becoming, is slowly taking shape. But, let's be honest, that surrender? It's anything but easy. Letting go can feel like standing naked in the middle of a storm with nothing to cling to. It takes tremendous courage to loosen your grip on what you thought you needed to survive. It's terrifying to stop controlling outcomes and start trusting life. Because life can be brutal. It doesn't coddle your dreams. It doesn't protect you from heartbreak. It will strip you bare, break your illusions, and ask you to keep showing up anyway, with your heart cracked wide open. And sometimes, just when you think you've made progress, when you've convinced yourself you've healed, life will touch an old wound, and you'll bleed again. And it'll feel like a betrayal, like a setback. But my friend, that's not regression. That's proof that you are still alive, still tender, still capable of feeling deeply. And in this hardened world, that is not a flaw, it is your greatest strength. In those raw, disoriented moments, it's tempting to armor up, to shut down, to protect yourself from further pain. I've done that. I've built emotional walls so high, even I couldn't climb over them. But the truth is, healing doesn't come from disconnection. It comes from devotion to the rituals that keep you anchored when everything feels like it's drifting. Breathing deeply, speaking honestly, walking outside just to feel the ground beneath your feet, returning again and again to the practices that help you remember who you are when the world tries to make you forget. True detachment, the kind that heals rather than numbs, is not apathy. It is not pretending you don't care. It's not coldness wrapped in spiritual lingo. It's the bravery to say, I love this, I value this, but I no longer need to control it to feel safe. That's real freedom. That's what maturity feels like, not the absence of feeling, but the presence of wisdom within the feeling. The danger, though, is how easily we confuse detachment with emotional disconnection. I know I have. I've mistaken my silence for peace when it was fear in disguise. I told myself I was letting go, when in reality, I was just pushing things away because they scared me. And that kind of numbing, though it may bring short-term relief, always leaves a hollowness in its wake. Indifference might look strong on the outside, but inside, it's brittle, cold, lifeless. Real detachment, the kind that keeps your heart intact, doesn't say, I don't care. It says, I care deeply, but I trust myself enough to release the outcome. It's the soft but unshakable knowing that you can stay open without losing your center. It's not about running from vulnerability, it's about stepping into it with your eyes wide open, knowing the risk, and choosing love anyway. And yes, love is always a risk. To care is to invite pain. To trust is to accept that things might break. And yet, to choose not to love, not to feel, not to engage, that's not protection. That's spiritual starvation. We were not born for a flatline life. We were born to laugh until we cry, to mourn until we heal, to ache and to rise and to begin again. So many people these days are chasing this minimalist version of emotion, this false idea that the less you feel, the more evolved you are. But that's not wisdom. That's fear posing as enlightenment. Detachment, at its core, is not a rejection of emotion. It's a reclaiming of your power within emotion. It's standing in the middle of joy or sorrow and saying, even this cannot define me. It's knowing how to sit with grief and not drown in it. How to celebrate love without clinging to it. How to face endings without collapsing into despair. It's not about never hurting. It's about trusting that even in the hurting, you are held by something greater, your soul, your light, your resilient spirit. Letting go is not a one-time decision. It is a daily, sometimes hourly, choice. To loosen your grip, to surrender the story, to believe, again and again, that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't. That your path may not be perfect, but it is purposeful. I've learned that detachment isn't the end of love, it's the evolution of it. It's loving people in a way that sets them free. It's grieving without becoming bitter. It's embracing life without trying to tame it. It's standing in the eye of your storm and whispering, I am still here. I am still soft. And I still believe in beauty. Because true freedom is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, like a sunrise over the wreckage of what you thought you needed. It lives in the exhale you didn't know you were holding. It pulses in the stillness after the storm. It's that moment when you stop grasping and realize you're still standing, whole, wounded, and still worthy of everything good. So wherever you are right now, if you're struggling to let go, if your heart is heavy, if you're caught between holding on and breaking free, know this, you're not broken. You're becoming. Letting go isn't the end. It's the sacred beginning of something deeper, truer, more aligned with who you are. Come home to yourself. Not the self the world told you to be, but the self that already knows how to love without fear, feel without shame, and live without needing to control it all. That, my friend, is where your truest freedom lives. So here, as we reach the end, I invite you not to let this be a conclusion, but a beginning. A beginning of living lighter, of choosing grace over grip, of saying goodbye when you need to, and hello to the freedom that waits on the other side. You are not what you've held on to. You are what you're becoming. And that becoming begins right here, right now, with the simple, sacred act of letting go. Thank you so much for staying with me through this powerful journey of self-discovery and release. So, what have you learned so far? What part of this video resonates with you the most? I invite you to reflect on one thing that has deeply impacted you and share it in the comments below. Let us know what you plan to practice or how you feel after hearing these words, because your voice matters in this community. If you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please leave a comment, hit that like button, share it with someone who might need this message, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more life-changing content. Remember, letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about embracing peace and freedom. So, take this journey with an open heart and keep growing. I'm so glad you're here with me. Thank you again for being part of this. I can't wait to hear what you'll bring into practice and how this video transforms your journey. Until next time, choose peace, choose freedom, and remember, you are worthy of every beautiful thing coming your way.